What's going on, my good people? Mike Hidalgo here, and thank you for joining me on another FCP Euro DIY. Today, we're working on a 1988 Porsche 911. Today on the Carrera, we are going to be covering how to replace your starter. Our car is an 88 with the 3.2 liter, and the starter is going to be one of those things that are going to be easy to get to while we're dropping the engine on this car, which is one of the things we're doing to kind of get all these parts done, which you can find on fcpeuro.com. Each one of these will have their own DIY video on the channel, and if you're trying to get to the point of dropping the engine and trans in your air-cooled 911, be sure to click the link in the video description below, where the sole focus of that video is the removal and reinstallation process for that. Typically, these starters can last almost a lifetime of a vehicle, but like anything else, they're surrounded by heat, and after almost 40 years of heat cycling, they can get worn out. Things can get just corroded on the inside, and they stop doing their job. With a manual car, maybe not the end of the world if you can pop start it, but let's be real, you're not going to be pop starting your 911 everywhere you go. So we're going to be covering how to do that, but before we do, let's take a look at some of the tools you're going to need. All right, for this DIY, this is serious Mike talking now with the glasses. You're going to need a torque wrench, a 3/8 drive ratchet, a 13mm socket, a 10mm hex, and then some basic electrical wiring tools if you are upgrading to the Bosch unit as we are today. We have some wire strippers, wire crimpers, some little snips, and a heat gun. Should be a pretty straightforward one. Now with that, let's go ahead and get started. We have our engine and transmission assembly on the table, my good people. And again, as we mentioned, we're doing a bunch of videos with this engine out. You could also take some of this if you want to do the starter as well while you have everything out, as we are going to be removing it. So let's start with that one, as this one has the odd hardware out of the other other three bolts that are holding this baby in. We had already undone the wiring when we dropped the engine and transmission originally. You can do that now. It's just a 13mm and an 8mm for the signal wire and your power wire to the back of the starter. Then obviously there's some factory zip ties here. We're gonna snip those babies off, and that'll free up the reverse switch harness, which on our car was already broken. So we'll have to look into replacing that while we have everything apart. And then we'll just do that one and tuck this wiring just somewhere off to the back on the engine side of things, just out of our way. All right, for the starter and one of the bolts that acts as the transmission bolt, we have these 10mm nuts almost. They use a 10mm hex. And so we're gonna go in with an extended 10mm hex socket, just so we can crack these babies free. Typically, they're just nuts and they're gonna leave the studs behind. Sometimes with corrosion, the studs can come out with it. So just be mindful of that. So we're gonna take our extended 10mm, and our 3/8 drive ratchet. Make sure that hex bit is seated in all the way. And we're also going to pull the other 10mm on the back side, just so that we can remove the starter fully from the transmission and it's not in our way. All right, and then we can just work this big old starter off and set this baby to the side. So we're upgrading to our higher horsepower Bosch starter. While the old one was totally fine, while we have this apart, it is a great time to upgrade. This will allow us to turn over the engine a whole lot quicker and easier, which should be good for the startup of this car. We're going to take our hex bolts and our washers, get those baby into place. And then with that, we will grab our extension and our torque wrench, and we're going to snug these down to about 30 Newton meters. So with that, we're going to work on our power cable and our signal wire. The power cable is obviously very easy, it only goes in one spot. We're going to take off our locking nut and locking washer, and that baby can live something like that. Now, when we were dropping the engine during that video, if you've watched that, that's when we undid the cables, but since they're in our face right now, it'll be nice and easy to just do them here. 13mm socket, and we're just going to snug this baby up We kind of just want this to rest the way that it used to be resting on top of the car. Wiring coming down the starter, which we'll zip tie back up when we're done. And so next on our list is going to be to do our signal wire. We're going to have to cut off this old end. And then these come with some spade connectors, which I do not think I'm going to roll with. I'm going to use this other one that has some shrink tubing already around it. So I think these are more just for shipping. But we're going to cut this end off. Just make sure we have enough slack depending to which one we want to go to. I'm going to slide over some extra shrink tubing just to keep this as weatherproof as possible. And we'll get our spade connector in. All right. We're going to crimp this baby down. And we are in business, my good people. I'm going to grab a heat gun, shrink this down, and then I'm going to use this extra piece of heat shrink over it to make sure we have a nice and tight seal. All right, we're going to let that cool down a little bit, and then we'll plug it in. We'll get a zip tie for the main harness going around the starter. We should be good to rock and roll. At this point, we have our starter bolted up, torqued down, torque sealed on the bolts, our power wire and our signal wire going to the solenoid. We have our harness zip tied down. You have your reverse signal harness coming down here. You can get this baby back in place now if you'd like. Clip that one in there. Open this baby up here. Clip this one back. And then we'll plug it in and we'll be ready to rock and roll. But as far as the starter, that is going to conclude this DIY for today, my good people. Again, incredibly easy with the engine out of the car. Something I recommend doing, especially the upgraded Bosch unit while you have it out. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments on what we did today, any tips or tricks on how you wired this up, something that may help the other viewers on the channel, be sure to leave those in the comment section below. And if you'd like to see more DIYs like this one, please consider subscribing. We make new ones all the time. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.